We'll start with the magazine side plates. I've laid up 4 pieces of 6mm MDF. This large hole, I've put a pin through that, and also a pin outside the plate which I'll cut off right at the end. Drilled 2 3.5mm holes which I can fit a scroll saw blade in and cut that slot. I'll also drill the screw holes, those 3, into the 2 leftmost plates. That slot won't turn out perfectly, but you can put it back in the drill press and smooth it out. And there we have our 4 side plates. 2 of them with screw holes, and 1 just with this slot, and a hole that will fit the rotor. Use a damp cloth to help remove these plates. Here are the main parts of the magazine. We've got the 2 side plates, we've got this piece, which is made from 19mm pine, but it needs to be planed down just slightly. As you can see, that's just a tiny bit below 19mm thick. Same goes for this piece, and this piece too, both about 18.5. Got our 6-spoke rotor. This one's a upgraded plastic version, but I've had pretty good luck with this 6mm plywood rotor that has the points soaked in CA glue. And then just these little side plates. My plans don't have measurements, but because they print full size, it's easy enough to just press parts onto the blueprint and mark off any lines. You can see that one that I used for this distance here. Once you've glued these 2 pieces, you can fit the rotor latch. So the small part should be in this orientation, and in that position, where it's lined up with the block, I'm going to flip it over and mark in there, like that. And that will show us where to position the hole. It's a little hard to see, but I've drilled the hole right where that line is, right on the edge of it. And that should mean that this slides smoothly back and forth, as well as not too far forward. It's a little tight, but if I sand this area, I can fit it. You can start screwing on the side plate. You can see I've used pins to make sure it's all nicely aligned. Finish off the magazine, glue some little cover plates on the outside of those holes, put some serrations onto the magazine catch. You can also see a slight taper here so that it more easily fits into the locking ring. For this piece, I suggest starting with 19mm thick pine and then cutting away this section to get that 6mm thickness. As for all the trigger parts, it's really important to get the layering right. So because the right hand side plate will be screwed into place, that means the right hand part of this piece will be cut down, because this part will glue onto the side plate. And that little screw hole fits the trigger, like so. So that's our semi-auto trigger. Our full auto trigger will fit on like this. Those 2 parts are glued on so that our triggers can be nicely in line. You can see how that overlaps. And if we imagine this trigger is going to be centered and this is going to be offset, that means we want this little piece to be offset to the same side so that they can engage something like that. That'll make a little more sense when I put it all into place. All of the large holes need to fit a pin loosely, and the small ones, here, here and here, they all need to accept screws. When you get to the frame, the first thing you should do is align the magazine so that the mechanism works. That magazine should fit just into there like that. We can fiddle around with the rotor and the releaser. Right there, it locks up. This doesn't want to move properly. See there? I can't actually turn that back anymore. So what I want to do is move the magazine, slide it that way until it can move freely. There we go. And then I can install this part, because that will control how far back the magazine goes. For the barrel, I'm starting with a 180mm long piece of 16mm dowel. First off, we'll put a flat on the barrel. Then we'll cut that angled surface. I actually cut a bit too much off that angled surface, but all I have to do is just make that flat a bit longer. I've clamped the other side plate in place and spaced the barrel with these washers. All I have to do is drill through them again into the stock, and the barrel will be nicely aligned. Glue this piece in next. It should be glued just far enough down to allow this releaser to reset and release the rotor. Like that, just enough clearance. When it comes time to shaping the stock, these long straight sections can be mostly done with a plane or a spoke shave. Tighter curves are best worked with a good carving knife, and then sand it down. Here's the empty receiver, and the first thing we'll install is the locking ring. Next up is the full auto trigger, which will need a light duty compression spring. And we'll install the semi-auto trigger. That just screws into place, just tightly enough so that it moves freely. Now we'll put a bunch of spacers. The hammer and releaser are sprung also by an extension spring, and I've added some lead weight to that hammer to lower the rate of fire. For some reason I mixed the spacers around and the white one should go on the hammer, but anyway. Next up, we'll put the stock in place. I've pinned it in place so that if I ever want to remove it and go gangster mode with the San Cristobal, I can do that. Once that's done, the side plate screws into place. Last of all, we're going to screw the barrel in place. Because it's a separate part, that makes it easy to paint it fluoro orange. That's about all for this tutorial, so happy building!